Let's head to the West Coast to talk Oregon Duck recruiting with insider Justin Hopkins of Scoop Duck. Justin, Oregon currently sits 10th overall in the On3 industry team rankings. Dan Lanning has 7 total commitments, but I have a feeling there's more on the way. Let's take a look at Oregon's most important recruiting targets in 2024. Big man, number 1 offensive tackle in America, Brandon Baker, 4-star edge, Elijah Rushing, linebackers Dylan Williams and Justin Williams, no relation, and quarterback Luke Moga. So, Justin, let's start at the top with the number 1 offensive tackle in America. He's been to a lot of places, USC, Nebraska, Georgia, Tennessee, FSU. My man's been all over the country. Why do you think the recruiting prediction machine right now heavily favors Oregon at almost 80%?
I think it's just because of the frequency that Oregon's been mentioned with Baker, and probably the long-standing relationship, which dates back to Adrian Clem. There's a really strong tie there, not to mention that his cousin, Gary Baker, also played at Oregon earlier in his career. And for Oregon, they've prioritized him very early on, not because he's really good, but because offensive tackle is one of the top 2 positions for Oregon in this cycle. They really kind of struck out last cycle at offensive tackle, and they have a need for the body type. Lastly, Baker's a top priority because he plays football at Mater Dei High School, which is absolutely loaded with talent for the next 2 years, probably 15, 16 D1 prospects over the next 2 cycles at Mater Dei. So getting a guy like Baker obviously helps you with those other guys as well.
All right, before we get to the next high-profile target, Oregon fans, do me a favor real quick. Subscribe to the On3 YouTube page. Like this video, subscribe. We got a ton of recruiting news and every college football development. Follow us on the On3 YouTube page. All right, let's head out to Arizona for another borderline 5-star prospect, edge Elijah Rushing. What will be the key to Oregon landing Rushing out of Arizona?
The key there is again, a long-standing relationship and the fact that Dan Lanning has had such great success developing his position type. And Rushing's well aware of that. He's been to Oregon several times. He was one of the first guys Oregon prioritized in this 2024 recruiting cycle. I think that's a really big key there, and something that we've learned at Oregon and some of the other West Coast schools, his body type isn't abundant out west, right? Any of those big-time offensive or defensive linemen, you've got to go and get them, and you've got to keep them out west and keep Georgia and Alabama and the others away. So I think Dan Lanning's been licking his chops at Rushing pretty much since he's got to Oregon, and I think that's the biggest key right now. Dan Lanning has a really high hit rate on the guys that he's personally recruited at Oregon. He doesn't recruit a lot. So, Mario Cristobal, when he was here, was very active with a lot of recruits, and Dan Lanning's very active with kind of a select few recruits and has a pretty good hit rate with those.
Well, up next, we got a pair of elite linebackers, Dylan Williams from California and Justin Williams from Texas. Dylan, the number 106 ranked player overall, while Justin, the number 28 ranked player overall. So 2 really good players at the linebacker position. Justin, which does Oregon do you think has a better shot at? Which Williams?
Dylan Williams makes the most sense, right? Because he's from the LA, Southern Oregon area. That's a guy that, again, Oregon, once he was committed to USC, Oregon didn't let up, committed him really hard the whole way, got him to decommit from USC. Wasn't maybe just Oregon, but that was a big part because he visited Oregon the next week after he did that. He's expected back again later this month for the spring game. Justin Williams is also expected back later this month for the spring game as well. There's the other one. Okay, they struck out pretty badly last cycle at linebacker. There's not a lot of depth there on the roster right now. There's some good players, but not a lot of depth, and they've got to bring in some guys. So both of these, Justin and Dylan Williams are top targets for Oregon. Oregon has done a really, really good job getting into the state of Texas under Dan Lanning. Last cycle, they signed 5 or 6 prospects out of the state of Texas. I know they'd love to do that again. They've got Aaron Flowers who committed on Friday from Texas. So I would give the edge to Dylan Williams, but I still think they have a great shot at Justin Williams as well.
All right, Oregon fans are very comfortable with quarterback drama. They went through a lot of it last cycle. Oregon fans made it out on the other side, and here we are circling back around to the position again. Luke Moga announced Tuesday morning that he's going to make his college announcement on April 28th. The On3 industry rankings have him at number 30 overall, but On3 has him a little bit higher as the number 20 quarterback in that group. Where do you think the Ducks stand heading into this late April decision?
I think they're in great shape there. Again, somebody that they prioritized early, and it kind of blew up in that mid to late January part of the recruiting cycle this year. He fits what Will Stein wants to do. He would prefer to run the ball a little bit more, and he absolutely loves Moga's athleticism. So I think that the way that they've sold the offense to Moga, the way that they've recruited him and kept him a priority. Now, I do think TCU is a legit threat, obviously, with what they did last year in that offense and Sonny Dykes. I think those are probably the big two right now to watch out for. But I do think based on a number of things, geography being one of them, the relationship, all those things, Oregon is in really good shape with Moga at this point.
All right. Well, those names that we just talked about are guys that Oregon has a very good shot at. Now, one that they're going to take a big swing at here soon is the number 1 overall player for On3, edge Dylan Stewart. He's visiting Oregon for the spring game. Why do you think the Ducks have a shot here?
For number one, something that I mentioned early on is Dan Lanning, right? He's just been known as a defensive guru. People that are close to him just have been able to kind of glean from him just how great he is at coaching defense, and particularly coaching guys like Dylan Stewart. I think a number of things. Oregon does sell one of the best spring games around the country every year. Secondly, the weather's supposed to be really nice this year, and it hasn't been all that great out west. We've had a ton of snow and a ton of rain. The last thing, which I really want to hit home on, though, as far as I'm aware, Oregon, I believe, is the only spring game that weekend. It might be one of two. So you don't have a lot of competition for other schools for being on prime time, for folks watching you, for battling with recruits, whether they're deciding to go to this school or that school. Oregon has a prime opportunity that weekend to host a lot of recruits, and it's looking like one of the biggest lists I've ever seen at Oregon. And I think that's a big reason for that is the fact that you're the only show in town all over the country. And I think Oregon's going to capitalize on that. If they're able to get a couple commits that weekend, which they've traditionally done, that might build some more excitement around Stewart while he's there and potentially put the Oregon, in position with him down the stretch, because I don't believe that's a young man that makes an early decision. I think the best thing you can do is hope to put yourself in a position to get him back on campus again for an official visit.
Yeah, I think that'll be key. Oregon's going to be able to showcase what they have, not only to Dylan Stewart, but to, like you said, a lot of other recruits. There should be a lot of excitement around that weekend. Justin, before I let you go, we have the number 1 Oregon insider on the show. So I got to ask you, Oregon fans want to know, who is the most important recruit for the Ducks in the 2024 cycle?
For me, I think it's Ryan Pelham, 4-star receiver out of California. Kind of seems to be working through things a little bit right now. And it's weird for me to say that because Oregon already has 2 high-profile commits in Jordan Anderson and Tysier Denmark. But I think he's really honed in on Ryan Pelham. And again, that's a young man that's shaping up to be an Oregon-USC battle. I think Oregon and USC are going to go head-to-head for Pelham. And I think that should Oregon be able to land Pelham, it gives them another flex over USC, Lincoln Riley, especially if you're taking an offensive guy with a defensive head coach. I do know that, that's kind of a big flex for Oregon. So I would say Ryan Pelham, just because I think that's going to be one that a lot of folks key on and talk about.
All right, Oregon with the top 10 recruiting class right now. We'll see what they can do as we head into the spring game. Justin, thanks for stopping by the Inside Scoop. Thank you for watching. Make sure you smash that subscribe button for me. And remember to check out all the videos on the On3 YouTube page.